Ah, here it is. What's going on, guilty guys and gals? Welcome to ranking every video game that I've never played before this year for 2021. Of course, you'll see a lot of these games aren't new games. In fact, I think the only one that would count as new this year is Deltarune? Maybe Metopia, even though that's a port. BDSP, that's a remake though. I don't think any of these are like new this year without any caveats, you know? I'm pretty sure these all, like, Omori released in 2020, Metopia has been released before, Your Turn to Die released a long time ago, Balloons did too. I don't know. But hey, these are the games I played this year, and I'm going to rank them against each other to find out which was the best of my year this year. I'm going to put Rhythm Heaven at the end because I'm going to have to talk about that a lot. So let's start with games that I played on the channel, why don't we? Metopia! Okay, I haven't finished Metopia for Switch, but I think I can pretty accurately rank it because it's just Metopia again, but with better character customization. And honestly, if you've never played Metopia before, give it a go. It's not quite as good as Tomodachi Life, which is what it's based on. With like the Miis that live in the apartment building. I'm sure you've seen it at some point if you've been around like the internet. It's a pretty popular meme game. It's so good. And Metopia is pretty good too. I'm going to put it in B tier just because it is kind of boring sometimes, I have to be honest. Like, there's enough funny stuff that happens to keep your attention most of the time, but sometimes you'll be going through an area and it'll just be like, oh, what's happening? You're eating a banana? Okay. And that's just because half the game plays itself, you know. It's good for beginners that don't really like RPGs and just like goofy memes. But yeah, I'm putting it in B tier. Rimworld. Oh boy. So you might understandably think that I really like simulation games by the fact two of them are in here. But I really don't. It's not really my style, usually. In fact, out of all the games that are here, the only ones that are, like, my style, quote-unquote, are, like, Your Turn to Die and Straw 2. And Pokemon, I suppose. But, the other ones, they're all different. Well, Deltarune. I'll say Deltarune as well. Balloons Tower Defense. These aren't games that I play very often. But Rimworld, definitely not. A very complex simulator game is usually not one that I would enjoy. But, man, talk about... This is like Metopia if it was, like, crazy. You know what I mean? Like, you can name your little pawns anything you want and have them try to survive on an alien planet. And so much crazy stuff happens. Here's the story that I hope can sell you on this game if you've never played it before. So I had this thing, and I decided to, for my first game, I was going to get 3 people that were decently well, and I was going to make them all prisoners. Like, I was going to make... So their backstories was all that they were prisoners. And I had one lady who was really good at shooting, one guy who was really good at fixing things, and then the loner, you know what I mean, who was like wearing a black leather jacket. And okay, so that guy's name was Jet, right? Jet with the black leather jacket. And over time, the girl who was good with guns and the guy who was good at building things got together, and they had like a wedding. And as more and more people joined our group from like crash landings and stuff like that, Jet was always on his own, right? And so I was like, oh, Jet really is the loner, the lone wolf of the group. And then we opened this little ancient building, okay? And in it are a bunch of cryo-sleep caskets, which are basically what they sound like. They put you to sleep for hundreds of years. And so we opened them up after blowing up all the robots that were in the way. And who's in one of them but Jet's sister, apparently? And it's like, what are the odds that this man would crash land on this planet only to find his long-lost sister in a cryosleep casket? And it makes you think like, maybe Jet sabotaged our space shuttle so we would land on the planet and he could recover his long-lost sister. And that's sort of what the entire game is. It's a very straightforward, although on higher levels, very complex management game where you try to manage a bunch of people to survive on a distant planet, and a bunch of crazy stuff happens and you get to make up your own lore. And it's great. I mean, I think it's good. It has easy modes if you don't really like this kind of game, which I think is important. And hey, it's like a more advanced Metopia. Literally, that's how I can put it. Because I'm sure a lot of people that watch my channel, Metopia be more their speed, just because, visual novels and Pokemon, it's not all that complex, right? Just a good gaming time. And Rimworld, despite its complexity, is still a good gaming time, so yeah. Next is Omori. This is hard. I really like Omori's story, and I waited for Omori for such a long time, but I don't think I can put it in A tier. Because the game itself, the actual game, feels kind of lackluster for the most part. Like, the story is great, and I really like the mechanic of the emotions. I think it's a very good, very unique way of doing, like, status conditions in an RPG. But other than that, it's basically just a stock standard RPG. The overworld stuff is cool. The horror stuff, it's there for some parts. The story, great, but stuff like Sweetheart's Castle, where it takes you like hours to get through it, or what was the other one that took a really long time? Otherworld wasn't really that bad. It was mostly just Sweetheart's Castle, I guess. Although, I will say, the thing with The Last Resort, as much as I like that name pun, it did kind of overstay its welcome too, and didn't really serve a point. I feel like that's kind of the issue. Like, if the game play in the dreams was more connected to the overworld stuff, where you got to learn about the truth, I feel like that would make it somewhat more worthwhile. But for the most part, it feels like that Dreamworld stuff is entirely superfluous, and on a broad scope, maybe it relates to certain things, but for the most part, it's just entirely separate. And, that's kind of lame. I get it's supposed to be like an escape from reality, right? So it shouldn't be too close to reality. But I feel like it'd be more effective if it was as an escape from reality, in the fact that it represented reality and the way that your character wants reality to be. Right? Like everybody's happy and everything's good and no bad things ever happen. I feel like that'd be cooler. But as it stands, it's still a solid game, just kind of a bit too black and white. No, I was going to say a bit too bland in certain parts of the RPG sections, and the battle system and stuff. But hey, if you like the battle system, more power to you. I'm just not that big of an RPG lover. Other than Pokemon, but hey. Deltarune Chapter 2. Do I have to say it? This is like the opposite of Omori. Where Omori, I was like, I wanted this just to get through the story because I wanted to know the story, and the gameplay was secondary. With this one, I'm like, yeah, the story's good, and the gameplay is even better. The stuff with Spamton is very unique. I like Birdly. As much as I think when I was playing it, I expressed how much I hated Birdly, but I did slowly grow to like the blue meme machine that he had become. Gamers! Yeah. I think it's neat. It's better. It's right on par or better than Chapter 1, so I can't really say it's anything worse than A tier. And I just really love the Undertale combat system of, you can dodge any attack, right? You don't just have to stand there and take it, as a certain skeleton would say. But it's up to skill for you to be able to dodge those attacks. And, I think that's a cool way of doing an RPG to keep you engaged in battle. Like, you always have to be ready for the next attack. You don't just, choose your moves, then sit back, watch what happens, and then choose your moves again, And I like that. It's like a more active version of an RPG. Next is Bloons. I think Bloons is B tier. It's certainly Bloons. Balloons Tower Defense was probably one of the first Flash games I ever played. Pretty sure it was Flash. It was definitely like one of the first online games I ever played. But I was at this friend's house, and I wasn't really having the best of times. So they had internet that I had really slow internet, so I could never play it at home. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to play Balloons. And I played Balloons from like 9:30 when we went to bed till like 1 a.m. And yeah, I had a good time. And that's my history. That was like Balloons Tower Defense 2 or something. And this is Balloons Tower Defense 6. Feels just as good, if not better. Of course, it's a little better. It's a little bit more advanced. But it's just a good time. It's a solid tower defense game. It's good for, you know, wasting time. You know what I mean? It's nothing that I would like pour my heart into, let's say. But it's good for a quick little game every now and then. Basically what I use Smash Bros for at this point. Just go on, play a few games, have a little bit of fun, and then get off before you get frustrated. And that's that. So, your turn to die. Man. I can't believe Your Turn to Die was this year. Almost entirely, too. It feels so long ago. My criticisms of Chapter 3 still stand. Of course, we haven't got the whole chapter yet, because it's the final chapter of the game. But I do feel like Chapter 2 was the peak, with So and everything that was happening there. I just feel like Chapter 3 didn't have that thing. I think they were trying to build Ranmaru up, but I don't know. The dolls were a really interesting idea in Chapter 3, and I did like them a lot. But it's kind of a shame that they're a waste of time in the end, isn't it? Literally a waste of time. No matter what you do, they will not affect pretty much anything as far as we know. So yeah, I'm going to put it in A tier, but low A. I still really like the idea of Your Turn to Die, even with its slight mechanical issues, like the sacrifice card. I still don't think that was a good idea. But Chapter 3 kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, you know? We'll see how the trial works, but god damn it. If they make, like, another character just randomly die with the sacrifice card before you get out, I don't get it, man. Every killing game visual novel has its issues, and basically, Your Turn to Die is no different. But it is kind of stylish and cool, and I like it, so. Hey, it's Straw 2. That's another S tier. Sort of a similar thing. I think I said last year that there's no way Straw 2 could let me down, and I mean it didn't, but it did a little bit. Why didn't Iroha or Shobai or really Yuki even really get to do anything for the final chapter? I get that you had to include Rei and Tsurugi at the end because, you know, it's important for them to have their little characters come to a close. But it really feels like, you know, Iroha was kind of a waste for the most part. I don't know. I just liked Iroha, and it's kind of a shame she doesn't get to do anything after chapter 4 or something. And it's really the same with Shobai as well. Revealing his, like, backstory, cool. Why he's there, okay, I get it. And I think that's kind of a weakness as well, is the fact that so many of them were tied in with the game beforehand somehow, instead of it just being a group of people. Because there was like a lot of talk with like the first few when you're talking about what am I trying to say? When you're talking about their backstories, as you're going back through the like ruined virtual world, there's like the first few, like Yuri and Shinji, you're like, okay, these were just good people who got drawn into this because they were good people. And that's usually what Danganronpa is. But then it's like, oh, but Setsuko was connected to the thing, and Shobai was connected to the thing, and blah, 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 blah. It really just made it feel like, okay. Like, Void was enough. Like, that was 5 people out of the cast connected to the overall game. That would have been enough. plus Shobai, okay, fine. But then also adding on Setsuka and adding on Sora and adding on Yuki, it just felt a little tired at the end. But overall, still the best Danganronpa game I've ever played. And it wasn't even official. Wah wah. It's certainly worthy of sharing certain elements with Danganronpa 2, which I think, narratively wise, on the broad scale of the narrative, is the best one in the official Danganronpa series. And it's a really good game. So if you haven't, I spoiled a lot, but if you skip to this part because I told you to, I'd give it a shot. You can watch my playthrough, or you can just watch the translations and form your own opinions instead of listening to mine. All right, Civ 6. What can I say about Civ 6? It's only B tier. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Huh. Honestly, I might put it in C tier. Look, I said before, management games, they're not always my thing. But Civilization 6, I thought, I used to play Age of Mythology, which is a spin-off of Age of Empires, if you don't know. A lot when I was little. So I liked games like that. And I'm like, Civilization's like the modern version of that, right? No, not really. Look, I don't hate it, obviously. I just think that it very incentivizes one style of play, and that's kind of lame. Like, what's even the point of adding all these different ways to win the game if, like, literally, like, tourism is just overpowered? You know what I mean? And the one that I went with immediately was military, right? And I was like, it should be the simplest, right? You get a bunch of troops and you go take over the cities. But I was shocked by how useless the military path felt. Sure, you can, like, nuke stuff, and at that point it's like, okay, cool. But, like, before that, it is nearly impossible to take a city without, like, extensive, like, taking, like, 40 turns to take a single city sometimes. Because it would just be, like, I'd be at a city, and it'd have walls, and I'd break the walls down, but then at that point my infantry would be dead because they kept sending things from farther back. And then I couldn't claim the city with my artillery because I needed infantry to claim it for some reason. Like, there are infantry powering the artillery. Surely they could claim it. But no. And then, like, I don't know. It just wasn't my style. Not a bad game for sure, but definitely not my favorite of this year. Just say that much. And I gave it a shot too. I played a few, 3 or 4 games. I just tried out all the different paths, and I was like, huh. So there's really no reason to, like, even try doing the military path, huh? I don't know. That's just how it felt. Next is BDSP, which I think I can put in C tier as well. It's a solid remake of Diamond and Pearl, but it's literally just a higher graphical Diamond and Pearl. I do like, don't get me wrong, I do think the experience share makes it more fun, less annoying, at least for the kind of playthroughs I do, which is Nuzlocke and that kind of stuff, challenges. And I do like the Underground. The Underground was always the best part of Gen 4, and I do like that they gave it even more purpose because it is the best part. But they neutered contests for some reason, and I don't know. It's not a bad game, by far, but it's certainly not my favorite of this year. I'm waiting for Legends Arceus, alright? Now we're in the Rhythm Heaven block, so I guess you guys who don't care about Rhythm Heaven can pretty much leave. I don't know. You'll never know my game of the year, though. We'll start with Megamix. That was the one I started with on the 3DS. I thought Megamix was great when I played it, but as I played the other ones, I was like, okay, I get why people say Megamix isn't the best one. I was like, how can it not be the best one if it includes more mini-games than all the other ones? Like, what? They're the same mini-games, right? Yes and no. The one thing that Megamix did do really well that I can't fault at all is the the indicator on the bottom screen that tells you how close you are to the beat, like how well you're matched up with the actual beat of the song. That's really good. I like it a lot. It's a shame that DS didn't have that or anything else, but they had different gimmicks that used certain stuff. So I think I can put Megamix solid B tier. I think it's like a baseline for Rhythm Heaven. It's a pretty good game. I do like some of the new ones, like Tongue Lashing and what's it called? Pillow Party? Slumber Party? Something like that. Those ones are good. But the real stars of the show, ironically, are the Tengoku games, I think, that they bring back and put English to and fancy up a bit, even though some of the English translations, oh boy, specifically Space Dance, but also Tap Troop, I think. Not Tap Troop, Tap Trial. And there was one other one too. Marcher. All of those were like meh translations, but it was good to see Marcher in like full graphical fidelity. I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean. And Final Remix is fun, but it's not the most fun, and I don't really like the other remixes that much, so oops. Next we're doing Rhythm Heaven Fever. Not D tier, C tier. This is unironically my least favorite Rhythm Heaven game. Is that weird? Is that a weird opinion? Because I played it, and there are some really good games in here, right? Like there's Ringside, Seesaw, those are good games. The golf one, it's been a while since I played them now, but Hole in One, that's what it's called. But it's also got some of the worst mini games in the entire series. It's got, and not only that, but they don't even spread them out. They're all in one section. It's like Love Rap, Donk Donk, Bossa Nova, and Catch of the Day. No, Catch of the Day was in a different one, but that one's really not that great either. What's the other one in that group? Launch Party. That's the other one in that group for that remix. That remix was so bad. I don't know why they put those four in the same section, because they just feel kind of boring. Bossa Nova especially feels very straight-laced. There's like nothing new going on there. And maybe it's just because I played Megamix and Tengoku before it, that it just felt kind of lame. But I don't know. It just felt kind of lame. It still has the best final remix, that's for sure. But as I played the other ones, I was like, oh, these are actually really good too. So I don't know. It was probably just because it was on the Wii, so it's the one most people played. That's why it's remembered as the favorite. But honestly, I think these two did better than either of the ones I've ranked so far. So next is DS, right? I went into DS thinking it was going to be bad because people said it was really hard. And what was the other thing? Oh, I played a little bit of it. I played the first couple on a legitimate Nintendo DS, if you know what I mean. And it was very, annoying. But I bought it, straight up bought it for, well, it's the UK version. Yeah. So it's called Rhythm Paradise instead of Rhythm Heaven. But I bought it and I put it in my actual DS and played it, and man, it is literally it was really, really good. I was surprised. I was like, huh. It actually made me like a lot of games I didn't like from Megamix that were in the DS section. In Megamix, the DS games were my least favorite. But when I actually played them here, I was like, wow. I actually got into Lockstep, and I liked it quite a lot. The only one that I didn't like in this game, I think, was Glee Club. Because it just feels kind of... There's a couple cues that are in Megamix that aren't in this game, and it really messed me up. You kind of just have to know the song in order to get well enough on it. And that's a little annoying. But other than that, I think all the games in this one are good. I even like Rockers, which is the only mini game in the entire thing to use a button. Use the R button. I think the rest of them are pretty much all just the stylus. And it's actually really fun to control it with the stylus. And I thought it would be annoying, because a lot of stylus games were annoying. I remember playing Phantom Hourglass and trying to draw those shapes on the touchscreen with the stylus, and it sucked. But I don't know. It was just really good, and I was shocked. And Tengoku, also really good. Maybe it was just because I'm a music kid. Like, I'm a band kid, you know? So my sense of rhythm, perhaps a little bit more developed than other people. But I really like the older games better than the newer ones, which I didn't expect. Tengoku has some really weird rankings, but if you don't really care about that stuff like me, I only really cared about it in Megamix because there was actual rewards for it and stuff. Like, there is in this one too, but it's mostly just lore, which I don't really care about. If you don't really care about that and you're just trying to get through the minigames, this game is really fun. It's got some of the best remixes, I think, ever, and it's only got one bad game, which is Quiz Show, and they barely use it, so that's great. It's not like Fever, which will shove bad minigames in your face all the time, like Tap Troop or whatever. Yeah. I think the only one I didn't really like in that one was Quiz Show, and maybe the first time I played it, Samurai Slice, or what do they call it? I think they just call it Samurai, because it had to be translated. It never released over here, which is why I call it Tengoku instead of Rhythm Heaven. Yeah, I don't know. It's just really good. It feels right, you know? And it's funny because this game came out in Japan around the time I was playing the Game Boy, so maybe it's just nostalgia, but it's nostalgia for a game I never played, so I don't think that really makes sense. And now the hard part. Oh boy, the hard part. Which one of these 6 is best of the year? Alright, well, I can knock a few down. It's not going to be Your Turn to Die, and it's probably not going to be Rimworld, even though I like it a lot. Not Tengoku. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention it, but the DS Final Remix is, I think it might be better than Remix 10 and Fever. Just saying. If it wasn't for a couple bad cues. Between these 3, we'll leave Deltarune out because it's not a full game. So it's between Rhythm Heaven DS and Straw 2. Ooh, they're such different games. It's so hard to compare them. I think I have to. Controversial opinion, perhaps, because I didn't even play it for the channel or anything like that, but I had a lot of fun with Rhythm Heaven DS. It was definitely worth buying, which I didn't think was going to be the case. Man. It's a shame that this is the hardest Rhythm Heaven to play. Like, out of all of them, this one is the hardest, because you can get Tengoku from legitimate Nintendo sources online. You can get Megamix on the 3DS eShop, and you can get Fever on the Wii U eShop, but you can't get DS anywhere. And it's the best one. Why have they done this? Yeah, I think I'm going to have to put it at the top. It was really solid, and I had a really good time. Huh. Let me just say, I didn't expect that coming into this list, but here we are. Yeah, so that's my list for 2021. On to 2022 we go. I've still got the Great Ace Attorney for next year, and probably Danganronpa Another as well. So it'll be interesting to see how 2022 fares. Please let Legends Arceus be good. Please. But yeah, I will see you guys. Will I see you guys next year? I think I will. Well, maybe I'll stream, so maybe not. No, I still got a Friday upload too. You know what? If I do a stream, I'll be seeing you, I think, on the 31st. Because this is coming out on the 29th. And then that's a Wednesday. And then 30th is... No, I won't be seeing... Well, no. Yeah, no, I won't. See you next year is all I'm trying to say. Okay, like and subscribe. Bye!